One of the most important lessons my dad taught me was to never stop learning. He told me that when you stop learning, you stop growing. But the idea of growth right now may feel really, really hard and heavy. It may feel like one more thing on your never-ending to-do list. So I want to acknowledge that. If that's how you feel right now, I want you to know that you're not alone. As we begin to emerge from the aftermath of COVID, I see so many relationships that are struggling. They're struggling as a couple because the two individuals inside of it are struggling. Remember, our relationships are only as strong as the one who feels the least connected, fulfilled, desired, and loved. We want our relationships to have a strong and stable foundation. But here's the thing about stability. It's not very sexy. I mean, sure, maybe in the beginning, but over time, stability turns into monotony. And monotony, while very much appreciated by the primitive part of our brain, is not really appreciated by the nether regions in our body. So we want to find ways that we can stimulate that sexual desire. And one of the best ways to do that is through learning. Who knew education could be so fun? My name is Courtney Boyer. I am a clinically trained mental health and sex therapist turned relationship expert. I help individuals and couples infuse passion and purpose back into their lives. I'm also a certified level 2 Reiki practitioner because I'm a big fan of the mind-body connection. I'm a military spouse, a mom of 3, and a lifelong learner. I am so excited to be back here this year to celebrate Military Marriage Day with you. I hope you know how honored I am to be a part of this event and to have the opportunity to encourage, equip, and empower you in your relationship. Because that's really what I hope to do during our short time together. Because if the knowledge and expertise I have doesn't translate into stronger and more connected relationships in others, then I'm not accomplishing my life's work. And that's something that's incredibly important to me. So before we begin, it may be helpful for you to grab a journal or notebook or open the notes app on your phone so that you can jot some notes down. And as I do with all my clients and in my workshops, I will be assigning homework. Not because you need another thing to do, you don't, but because growth and transformation are more likely to occur when we integrate our learnings. Don't worry, no grades will be given out. So the first question I want you to consider is this. Why are you doing this? Why are you watching a video on sexual intimacy in marriage? I mean, maybe things are great in your relationship and you just want them to be a little bit better. Or maybe you're barely speaking to your partner and you haven't touched in months. Both places or anywhere else on that spectrum are exactly where you need to be because it's currently where you're at. And you're here now. Regardless of how healthy you describe your relationship, it's still important for you to identify why you're here. Because if it's one thing that I have learned over the years, both personally and professionally, is that if you're doing something for someone else, the results don't last very long. And when we do something for someone else that we really, really don't want to do, we just punched ourselves a one-way ticket to the town of resentment. So if you wrote down that I'm doing this for my spouse, I would encourage you to find a way for you to do this for you. Because when we show up for ourselves, it changes how we show up in our relationships. And when we show up differently, that's when our relationships begin to change. But that change has to start with us. And it's really important that you see this as a change and not a fix. Because a fix indicates brokenness. And you, my friend, are not broken. There is nothing wrong with you. Despite what you may be feeling or have been feeling, or maybe what someone told you, if that is the only thing that you take away from our time together, that you are not broken, then I will have succeeded. So please, please know that you matter, your feelings matter, and I am so glad that you're here. Now, with that being said, that doesn't mean that there are not growth opportunities. Even in the healthiest relationships and in the healthiest of individuals, there are still opportunities for us to learn more about ourselves. And I truly believe that what challenging experiences we go through, they are for us, right? They don't happen to us, they happen for us. Now, that doesn't mean that they always feel good, because most of the time they don't. So I, again, want to acknowledge that. But again, it goes back to us, which is point number 2. How well do I know myself? And since this is a talk about sex, that's where we're going to focus. How well do I know myself sexually? What does that question even mean? Well, let's break it down. We're going to consider the following 3 areas. How well do I know my sexual desires? My desires, the things that turn me on, and the things that turn me off. So we're going to look at each one. First, how well do I know my desires? Now, usually when we hear the word desire in a sex talk, we think about sexual desires, fantasies, etc. And yes, those are fun and great. But what I'm really interested in is the desires of your heart, the things that light you up outside of the bedroom, because that's where I see sustained sexual desire, not short-term performance. I'm interested in the long-term outlook, not the quick fix. When someone knows the desires of their heart, the things that light them up, the things that bring them joy, the things that they just love talking about and doing, they are more easily connected with their sexual energy. They're more easily aroused, and they're more willing to get it on. Think of it like a pilot light on those gas stoves. If the pilot light is always off, it takes longer to heat up that can of soup. But if the pilot light is already on, it translates into getting what we want quicker. So, in your notes, ask yourself, what do I desire? What lights me up? What makes me happy? What do I enjoy doing? What kind of environments do I feel most valued in? What kind of things do I love contributing and using my gifts for? When I work with individuals who are fulfilled in their overall life, I see them enjoying sex so much more. The question, as are all of these questions I'm asking you to consider, are all fantastic date night topics that you can talk about with your partner. So maybe the next time that you and your partner have some intentional alone time, consider reviewing these questions and using them as conversation starters. Because remember, we want to learn and grow, not just individually, but together. The next 2 areas, what turn you on and what turns you off, are inextricably linked. So we're going to cover them together. I want you to imagine a car. Now, imagine that you're sitting in the driver's seat. At your feet are a gas pedal and a brake pedal. The accelerator, also known as the excitatory process, is that gas pedal. This is your body responding to all the sexual information in your environment. So everything that you see, hear, touch, taste, feel, or imagine that your brain assigns, tags, categorizes as sexually relevant, that sends a turn on signal. That's what pushes down your gas pedal. At the same time, the inhibitory or brake pedal is noticing all the very good reasons to not be turned on right now. It's going to use the exact same amount of information that your turn-ons did, your gas pedal did, but it's going to consider if they are a potential threat. And then that will send the signal to turn off or push the brake. This is really, really important to understand. So sexual arousal is not just the process of turning on the ons. It's also turning off the offs. I want to repeat that. Sexual arousal isn't about slamming down that gas pedal. It's also about releasing the brake. Have you ever pushed the brake and the gas pedal at the same time? What happens? Well, the engine revs, but you don't go anywhere because the brake is more powerful than the accelerator. Let me repeat that. The brake, what turns you off, is way more powerful than the gas pedal that turns you on. So you can be at the most romantic getaway with your sweetie, and the kids are with Mima in Minnesota, and you can still struggle to get in the mood. Why? Because that brake will always win. When I work with clients, one of the things that we do is identify their gas pedals and their brake pedals. And this is where most clinicians miss the boat. They are super focused on the gas pedal. Go buy some lingerie, send the kids to grandma's house, bust out the sex toys, you'll be fine. So when the woman, because it's typically the woman that I work with, does this and there's still that disconnect, they tell her to push harder on the gas pedal. And so she's left feeling stigmatized for her inability to figure it out. So what does she do? She fakes it. She suppresses her frustration, she ignores the guilt, and puts on a good show for her partner. All the while, she can't wait for him to be done so that she can go back to doing something that she actually wants to do. I know that doesn't sound very good to hear, but I have heard it countless times when I meet with clients. I'm here to tell you that there is nothing wrong with you if you haven't figured out why you can't just sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. Because I'm sure you've tried that. I'm sure you've tried to take a bath before you get busy. You've tried a glass or 3 of wine so that you can de-stress. Maybe you've even flipped through the Kama Sutra to try to find that magical position. Can the latter be helpful resources? Absolutely. But it's important that we go deeper by helping you to identify why this may be difficult for you. I also want to make a note that some people have more sensitive gas pedals and some have more sensitive brake pedals. Regardless of your sensitivity of your pedals, it's important to remember that there's nothing wrong with you. It just may mean that you just push down more easily on your brakes, or you need a little bit more oomph to get the gas going. When we learn about our brakes and gas, the things that turn us off and on, we're more able to communicate what our needs are to our partner. But we don't know what we don't know, and we can't communicate from an empty space. So I'm giving you permission to explore the things that turn you on. And if you're struggling to come up with something, consider your senses. So what are the things that visually stimulate me? And when I say stimulate, I mean those things that send a zing or a pulse or the blood flow to your nether regions. For women, this looks like vaginal lubrication, engorgement of the clitoris, erect nipples. And for men, it can look like an erection. Now, this is not an exhaustive list of physical arousal symptoms, but for now, that's what we're going with. Also consider what smells, what tastes trigger my arousal. What sounds? Sounds are really great to consider because it can include music or vibration, which our bodies naturally respond to. Consider touch. What kinds of surfaces or fibers do I respond well to? And if you're still struggling, try and think back to when you and your partner were first attracted to each other, when you first became physically and sexually intimate. What about them? What about those early experiences turned you on? So, after you've come up with those things, there's a second step that's really, really important. I need you to then communicate those turn-ons to your partner. They need to know the things that turn you on so that they can be a more attentive lover, so that they can be a catalyst in your climax. If you keep all that juicy knowledge to yourself, then it's hard to grow together. The same thing goes for the things that turn you off. That big old brake pedal. You can absolutely use your senses as a checklist like we did with your turn-ons, but also consider, and again, you can apply this to the turn-ons as well, the behaviors of your partner that turn you off. One of the things I like to tell couples is that foreplay isn't just the physical stuff that happens right before intercourse. It's really the time between one sexual act and the other, meaning how you treat each other, how you care for one another, how you express your love and affection. That all counts as foreplay. And that affects how your partner shows up the next time that you want to get busy. So just some final thoughts. I hope that you consider it a gift to continue learning about your partner. I know we focused a lot on your own personal learning, so I want to leave you with this. When we are willing to first understand ourselves, we model for our partner that it is also safe for them to explore their own needs and desires. And from there, you create a space where both of you together and individually never have to stop learning about each other. Thank you again for this opportunity to celebrate Military Marriage Day with you. If you'd like to stay connected with me, which I would love, you can find me on social media at Courtney Boyer Coaching. I'm wishing you all the passion in your life and relationships.